but you now have me at a disadvantage because I have given you information about me, but you have yet to give me information about you. So, no offense, parents. Could the students go around and say your name, where you're from, and what your favorite class is currently, and we'll start over here.
My name is Catherine. I'm from Hanover, New Hampshire, and my favorite class is English.
I'm Hannah. I'm from USA. My favorite class is biology.
I'm Max. I'm from Newport, Rhode Island, and my favorite class is college.
Cool. Never mind. We won't waste our time on you. Kidding. All right. So, who went on the 10 o'clock tour? Excellent. All right. So that's good. I sometimes have people who haven't yet gone, some who have. So I don't want to repeat everything that Andrea was the tour guide. Excellent. You know, she gave you the current student perspective. She showed you all the pretty buildings and whatnot. So what I would like to do is offer myself as a resource. You guys are probably looking at more schools than just Wheaton. I mean, that's a safe assumption. We are also going to assume that you're looking, or have looked at, or will look at some schools that might, in some ways, be comparable to Wheaton. In size, in academic offerings, in campus environment, and stuff like that. So what we like to do with the info sessions is both give you access to someone beyond the tour guide, someone who has that perspective, but also has some of the more technical mission, behind-the-scenes stuff. But also kind of give you some chances to ask questions that you had that might not have gotten asked on the tour itself. So I'm happy to condense Wheaton's 178-year history, 2,000-member community, 400-acre campus into 3 points and give those to you. So you have those tools going forward so you can discern what Wheaton's like when you compare it to other schools. But I'm also happy to answer questions, and at this point I do open it up to the parents. That anything that you guys have on your mind, questions that you have about anything. I obviously like the sound of my own voice, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this job. So I'm happy to talk ad nauseum. But are there things that you guys want to know about? Things that you're curious about, questions on your minds? Not all at once. All right, that's cool, that's cool. And from here on out, I will be keeping track of the number of times I stun you into silence. So if I win, I mean, that's cool for me, but that just means you guys haven't asked any questions, which is totally fine. I'm supposed to be talking here. I won't count that one, because I didn't include that in my preface. So from here on out, tied to zero. So by simple fact of you being on campus today, you guys have come to campus. So you kind of know where we are. Unless you're like me and you just stare at the GPS your entire time and you have no idea where you are other than you've arrived at your destination. Thank you. So, Norton, Massachusetts. Small, residential exurb of Boston. Norton is about 14,000 people, just residential. I come from Maine, and there are parts of Maine, mostly where my extended family is from, that, you know, time has forgotten, for better or for worse. It's small, not really thriving. Norton isn't really that. It's never been anything other than residential. It's schools, it's neighborhoods, it's just normal New England small town. It's not a Providence, it's not a Burlington, it's not a Boston, New York. But we are a happy, thriving campus nonetheless. And in part, that's because we're between Boston and Providence, so we have all the opportunities and resources of those two awesome cities. You could hop up onto 95 and be in Boston, depending on traffic. Anyone a native Bostonian by any chances? No, so I can make fun of them? Excellent. My mom's one. They drive like really weirdly / dangerously. So it sometimes takes a while to get up into Boston, I won't lie. But barring traffic, 40-45 minutes and you're at Logan Airport or you're in downtown Cambridge or Somerville or whatnot. So it's not too far. I live in Providence. Some of my colleagues and I live down in the dirty city. It's been a lot nicer since Buddy Cianci and his illicit ways got the city cleaned up a bit. That's like 20-25 minutes south. So we're between the two cities. We like to use the city. Students can get into them if they have a car or if they use a commuter rail, so it's easy to do. But we're not in the cities. We're not UVM with a Church Street in Burlington. We're not a Brown Thayer Street in Providence. So we can't rely on them exclusively like those schools can. So our campus culture is one of definitely on campus. If you were to ask Andrea, your tour guide, if she used the city a lot, I wouldn't know her answer. She might say yes. I know some of our students in the office this summer do use the cities. We have one from the North Shore of Boston, one from Connecticut, so they like the cities. my answer would have been no. I'm not a real big city person. I wanted a school where I could come to school, and that would be the attention that I would give to the school, not to the touristy distractions or whatnot, which are fun. They're kind of nice icing on your cake. But for me, I wanted a school that was its own entity, and in order to provide a safe, comfortable environment for Wheaton to be itself. You see, we're not a gated community. We open our resources to people during the school year. On the weekends, our swimming and diving team teaches swim lessons to local kids. We have a great relationship with the Norton Town Library. We have a nursery school that's part of our campus. Our psych and the education departments use it, and it enrolls students from the local towns. So we really do have a campus that extends its community reach beyond just the 400 acres of Wheaton into the surrounding town and surrounding towns. Any questions about that? And it's officially 1 Jonathan, 0 you. Excellent. Okay. The other thing I like to talk about is our curriculum. And this might sound kind of boring and stale in preface, but actually it is not. You know, in today's age, when college's price is being talked about so much, because it should be, that's often blamed on, you know, the new buildings, the new programs, the new student center, all these things that colleges need to be put on. And yes, we just opened a new science center, none of which came from students' tuition dollars. So college is expensive, and it's a huge investment. And since those brand new flashy things are being added to the campuses, that's where a lot of attention is drawn. And sometimes it's forgotten that, oh wow, you're going to be a student in an academic setting for 4 years. And I think what Wheaton does academically really instills the fact that, yes, we are not immune from the cost of higher education, but the investment that you're putting into yourself during these 4 years will be returned through our academic offerings. And that obviously stems from the fact that we're a liberal arts college. Hopefully it's not a surprise to anyone here at this point. And it's not just that we're liberal arts, it's that we're liberal arts in the 21st century. We really firmly grasp that what liberal arts has come to mean, and definitely did mean up until 10, 15 years ago, is no longer quite enough. In this uber competitive, interconnected, flat world, thank you, Thomas Friedman, in which we apparently live, you can't just rely on the laurels of higher education's liberal arts approach, because that's not enough anymore. It doesn't. If you go to, BC Law, like a friend of mine, well, law schools just revised all their numbers, and it's actually only a third of their graduates are ending up in law-related fields, not 90% like they were pulling the wool over our eyes to believe. So it's not just that you're getting an education, it needs to be pertinent to the time in which you're getting an education. So in the 21st century, we want liberal arts to go beyond just taking classes and getting departments. We want it to be, that's the starting point. That is the start of your race, the marathon that you're going to run. The finish line is not simply being a philosophy major who takes a chemistry class. That's cool, but that should be a given during your 4 years here. So what we do is we connect our classes, we connect our curriculum. The faculty sat down and they said, it is no longer appropriate in liberal arts for people to silo themselves in different departments. The English department cannot exist separately or independently from the physics department. They exist in different parts of the same academic spectrum, though. So it's not like, every English class you'll be learning astrophysics. But there is an advanced astrophysics class, advanced quantum mechanics class, that is connected with a higher level English class. And since I'm neither an English scholar nor a quantum mechanics specialist, I'm going to actually choose a different example. But there are connections between pretty much every division, every class. You name me 2 departments, I could probably find you a connection between them. So one of my favorites is a religion studies class, the ceremony of food. This class talks about how food is encapsulated into various cultures, usually through religious or cultural practices, be it an indigenous tribe in the Amazon basin, a rural American family in Appalachia, a traditional Buddhist culture up in the Himalayas and Bhutan. So food is an important part of all these cultures. That class, our religion class, is connected with a chemistry class, edible chemicals. So here's a class that looks at how food is in our, chemicals are in our food systems. So everything from how completely artificial Twinkies are, and if they do actually dissect Twinkies and find natural ingredient substitutes for all the artificial ingredients that goes into Twinkies, and then they make the Twinkies. It also looks at things like genetically modified food and how chemicals, in good and bad ways, are completely a part of our food process. Obviously, food comes from chemicals, but does it come from things that GlaxoSmithKline makes or that good old Mother Earth makes? Different chemicals. So here are these 2 classes, completely different departments, arguably at different ends of that academic spectrum that I mentioned earlier. And what they do is, in a traditional, non-connected liberal arts environment, you might take these 2 classes, end of story. Cool, I mean, that's better than nothing. You're the chemistry student taking a religion class, you're the religion student taking a chemistry class. That has an innate value to it. We want to go that one step further and give you a benefit that is more than the sum of its parts. We want you to get more out of it than just the 2 classes. So the faculty of those classes, Professor Brumberg Krauss in religion, Professor Lita Pastrolendis in chemistry, have worked so that if you take both their classes, either at the same time, consecutive semesters, or somewhere not too far after each other, you will get an added benefit. You'll get a connected benefit out of them. They do this by subtly altering their courses' syllabi, their curriculum, so that they consciously and purposefully overlap at a certain couple of points. Different faculty approach this differently. Sometimes it's just joint units. So, the 4th week of every semester that these classes are offered, they talk about the similar thing, but from the pertinent point of view. So, genetically engineered crops from a chemistry point of view or a religion point of view. They talk about partially hydrogenated sugars and whatnot from a religious point of view and a chemistry point of view. They talk about ethics of slaughterhouses from a religious point of view or chemistry point of view, all these things. And by being that chemistry student, you are in that chemistry class. And one of the kind of subtle benefits of this connection program is it encourages that age-old practice of stepping outside your primary interests. So you are that chemistry student who never in his or her life would have taken a religion class, but you are, because Wheaton's gently pushing you towards a couple connections as a minimum requirement. So you're taking that religion class while you might never have done it otherwise. These connections exist all over the curriculum. There's about 60, 65 of them that the faculty have set up. A great one that I took, was medical ethics, a philosophy class for my philosophy minor. We took it the fall of 2009, which is when the healthcare debate was going on for the first time in Washington, or the start of it. And we were talking about the ethics and morals of liver transplants as a stand-in for any organ transplant. And, there's not enough livers to go around for people who need them, long story short. So you need to prioritize who gets them. And we have things called like the United Network of Organ Sharing to do that, but still, who gets it? Who gets the liver? There are 50 candidates and 2 livers. Who gets them? And this subject was all about, morally, we have to find an ethical way of doing this. And some people would say, well, you can lop off a lot of people on that UNOS list who are alcoholics. They damage their own liver through their own action, therefore they shouldn't be prioritized at or above the level of people who, through a car accident, a genetic disorder, birth defect, through incident beyond their control, need a new liver. The counter-argument is alcoholism is a disease, and we treat diseases, so they need to be kept in that UNOS grouping. So we're having a moral debate about this. I don't remember who ended up winning, but it wasn't by much if someone actually did. But the point is, this class is connected with the health economics class. It deals with the somewhat more practical elements of healthcare than this medical ethics class, perhaps. And I did not take the medical ethics class. I didn't complete the requirement in that sense. I completed my connection requirement elsewhere. I took the medical ethics class. But in that class of about 20, 24 people, there were economics students. And I will not pretend to be the best philosophy student. Ask Professor Salata, she will agree with that. But I was a lot better than those econ students. But the class was connected with that econ class to draw in the econ students because Professor Salata thought it would be valuable to have her philosophy class basically slapped upside the head every now and then with some more practically minded students, the economists. And I don't always call economists practical, but I will in this sense. And so of that class of 24, say half of them were philosophy majors or minors, 4 or 5 of them were economics majors or minors, and the rest maybe were just taken as a general elective. So you get a really wide range of who's in that class. To top it all off, Phoebe Chan, the professor of the health econ class, came in and guest lectured at a couple of key points throughout the semester. Professor Salata went into her health econ class to do the reverse. So that's one way. Another way, the faculty really can intertwine their classes. So that even though I didn't do the technical connection requirement, I still got the trickle-down benefit of the connection of curriculum because it just permeates so many things. I did my own connections, literally my own connections, because I connected classes that weren't officially connected by the faculty. I connected a international law and organization class and an intro ethics class, political science, philosophy, major minor, you mentioned that. And I saw the connection, ethical relativism, an idea that what works for me, and it might not work for you, it doesn't matter, you can't tell me that doesn't work for you, because it works for me, that's all that matters. So if we're driving down the highway, driving down 95, I'm going 110. You think that's way too fast, that's way too dangerous. In a society that enshrines ethical relativism, I could basically say so. And I could be perfectly fine. I could pass a state trooper, no big deal. And you're going 55 because you find that better. I think that's stupid because you're going way too slow. Whatever, I can't tell you that it's wrong. So it basically means every single person's own idea is theirs, and they can't tell you that you're wrong, you can't tell them they're wrong. It's not, I was going to say stupid, it's not a good idea. It doesn't create a functioning society. However, it is the basis for international law. So, ethics, international law, and organization. Two completely different classes. But I saw that thing with ethical relativism, which was overtly discussed in ethics, and kind of subconsciously alluded to in international law and organization. I saw it as a strong enough connective tissue between these classes. The faculty agreed, and I did my own connection in that sense. Questions about connections?
I wondered about like post-graduation statistics. Where do students go after they graduate here, and what do they do, and what's placement for job careers and that
So right after graduation, roughly the past couple years has been 25 to high 20% straight to graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit higher than it might have been 4 or 5 years ago for obvious reasons. But it's always been a sizable minority of students who will go straight in. And I think, so that means the vast majority of students do go into, I don't want to say the workforce, because we have a significant number of students who do post-graduation scholarship, fellowship stuff that's not grad school, that's not the workforce. Fulbright scholars, Teach for America, City Year, these kinds of things are actually very big for students. We had 10 Fulbright winners this year, 5 Teach for America, 2 City Year, 2 Wheaton scholarships. So you add all those up, and that's, almost 10% of the senior class will be doing something that kind of quasi, not quite real life, not quite more school yet. Some of these things like the Wheaton scholarships often lead to graduate school further down the line. But I'd say roughly 25-ish% graduate school, 8 to 10% some kind of post-graduation scholarship, fellowship, exploration. And I'd say the rest kind of into the job market. You have those couple students who think, I'm going to go backpack to Europe now. Cool, have fun. But most students, the majority, will go straight to the workforce. If you track it out about 4 or 5 years, I think it's about 90% of students will have started or completed some kind of further education, whatever that is. If it's a 1-year degree from, like Rhode Island School of Design and Graphic Designing, or if it's, a 6-year PhD program at the University of Edinburgh. So it's a pretty wide range, but the significant majority of students will be in or have completed some kind of graduate school about 4 or 5 years after. I don't know because I don't work at them, I don't think that's at all unique to Wheaton compared to our comparison schools. The BA is becoming the equivalent of the high school diploma, and so now the master's, PhD, the look at me mom, $20,000 more in debt degree is becoming what the bachelor's once was. But in terms of jobs, that elusive 4-letter word, I do think that a lot of students, you have 2 tracks that you could pursue after you graduate in terms of jobs. What your major dictates and what your resume dictates. So your diploma or your resume, which one are you going to follow? I don't think anyone's more right or more wrong. My friend who was a religion and history double major, knowing my friend, Sophie, wasn't expecting her to pursue her diploma degree. I was expecting her to pursue her resume path because she's a New Yorker from Manhattan. She spent her summers building her resume, kind of working in the talent agency. She is a people person. Spent 30 seconds with Sophie, and you know her life story. And she spent the first summer working kind of as an entry-level assistant at IMG Models, so shows you how much I love the fashion world. Her second summer, she actually got an internship abroad because she was in Athens, Greece, and she stayed there over the summer. And then her third summer, she went back to a higher-level position at the modeling agency. And she didn't intend on going back there. She thought she wanted to do something a little different, but the economy was the economy 2 years ago, and her job offered her a job, and so she said, I'm not going to say no to that. And she's actually risen in the ranks, so she's now supervising the summer interns and whatnot that she once was. And I think that's a pretty common thing. We don't have hard and fast data on students choosing one over the other. That's kind of my personal anecdotal perception of what students do. I think in the past 3 or 4 years, you've seen an increase in the number of students pursuing the resume path as opposed to the degree path if they're divergent. Obviously, if you're a biochemistry major, you spend your 3 summers in the biochemistry lab, your 2 paths are parallel. But if they diverge at all, then I think students who get internships, be they unpaid or paid, and Wheaton's pretty good at getting the students the internships, why turn down a job right when you graduate, even if it's not directly related to your field of study, it's directly related to an interest of yours because you spent 2 or 3 summers doing it.
Are those all summer internships?
Well, what Wheaton will do, and this switches to career services, which is part of our academic advising structure, they're kind of the full service office. So if you're the student who is utterly driven and completely motivated and you know what you're going to do, but the whole cover letter thing kind of baffles you, cool. Career services will do that small portion at the very least. They'll help you with the cover letters, the resumes. The next step above that, they do mock and informational interviews. So if you don't know how to interview or you're nervous about your interviewing skills, they will interview with you just to teach you the skill set. Nope, slip the gum out. No, step straight. Things like that. But also, do your research beforehand. Go in there with some questions, skills that are going to make you stand out as an applicant. One of my favorite things I do is informational interviews, and that's not when you're interviewing for the job, but say you're like me and you want to do political campaigning during your summers. I could have contacted, we have roughly 4,000 alums in our alumni database who, and a lot of them do various things. A lot of them will do informational interviews. So I could have gone in and spoken to Lisa Gavigan and said, can you find me someone who has done political campaign work? She could have hooked me up with this guy who works for Emily's List, which is a political fundraising group that raises money for pro-choice Democratic female political candidates. Very specialty. And he was a fundraiser for them. And so I could have had an informational interview. I might not have gone to work for Emily's List. I might have not even known what Emily's List was. But I could have interviewed with him, not for the job, but for the field. And it would be kind of me asking him the questions. What's expected in terms of hours, and in terms of travel, in terms of people choosing, all these things. So there's these various steps that career services will do. Obviously, of course, they'll help you find something. They do ask that you kind of have an idea of what you want to do, so don't go in and say, find me something. Sorry, who are you? I'm a political science major, I'm a chemistry major, I kind of want to do research, I want to be in the field. All right, cool, now let's go. But my personal thing that career services will do is they'll fund it. About $600,000 every year goes out to support students so that that awesome unpaid internship doesn't have to be unpaid. The best things in life are unpaid, as career services probably wants the world's motto to be. And these stipends that they give out, ranging from $3,000 to $5,000, those are just some of the pots of money, can make the choice between doing an awesome resume building internship unpaid and having to go back to maybe a traditional high school summer job that is paid but doesn't advance your resume at all. That's not a tough choice anymore because they will give you money. I had an internship, a statewide campaign in Maine the summer after my junior year, completely unpaid, but it was perfect for me. It built off of skills I'd already kind of gained in previous summers. It would have been great to bring back into the classroom in my political science classes, but it was unpaid, 60 hours a week, no dineros. And so career services gave me $3,000. So I woke up on June 1st and hello, bank account. It's just there. You don't have to keep receipts. You don't have to do anything. You've done the legwork of applying, proving that you actually have an internship and whatnot, and that money is just your spending money. The only thing we ask that you bring back to campus is your experience. Bring it to the classroom. Bring it to some of our kind of internship showcases that we have. There's no final project apart from whatever you work out with your site, with your internship. So the money, I don't say it has no strings attached, but it's really just there to let you have the freedom to do what you need to do that summer. Other questions? And so I guess final thing I'll just touch on is kind of the advisor structure, which I touched on with career services. And I'm not saying it's like the other schools about Wheaton, it's definitely not career services. You do not go in there your junior or senior year and say, oh, career services, never been here before. We want you to go in there freshman year, sophomore year, kind of at the latest. You only have 3 summers when you're a college student, and you need to have that resume when you graduate. You always should have, but I think now you really need to have it. So we have something called the career curriculum, and it's steps and tools and pieces of advice for students to hit at as they progress through Wheaton. And our academic advising and career services office, 2 sometimes disparate offices, are together so that you can pursue your academic interests, be they chemistry, philosophy, religious studies, history, and see how that can translate into what you want to do during the summers. So there's separate people in those offices for their separate functions, but they collaborate and work together quite a bit. And like career services, our whole advising structure really starts freshman year, actually pre-freshman year. If you end up coming to Wheaton, you will actually have already been on campus a year from now, because you'll have come for our summer orientation program in June. You'll sign up for your classes then, you'll spend a night on campus, you will have started the process of being a Wheaton student 2.5 months before I did when I was in your shoes all those years ago. We really want that to start early. And you will sign up for things like your first year seminar, and that is a freshman only class, capped at 16, and the professor of that class is your advisor. That really officially starts the advising process, which will hit various levels throughout your 4 years. Also with your first year seminar, you have preceptors, student mentors to fill in the holes where faculty, despite their godly awesomeness, cannot quite go. They don't sleep on campus, they don't eat in the dining halls all the time. So the student preceptors are that academic mentor with a strong social underpinning. If you want to study abroad your junior year, like 2/3 of our students do, go be advised by the Center for Global Education. If you want to find some kind of service or outreach type program like AmeriCorps or whatnot, SSR, Service, Spirituality, and Social Responsibility, can advise on that. We have all these pockets of advising all around campus, and all 4 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, are hit with them so that at no point do we have wayward Wheaton students wandering on campus wondering who they are. The philosophy department does have lots of those students, but for other reasons. Questions about how we do advising? Okay. I do want to just touch on the kind of nitty-gritty admission aspects of it, since you probably didn't hear that on the tour. Just to make things inordinately confusing, we do have 3 ways to apply to Wheaton, the more the merrier. Early decision, that's the binding one. You apply November 15th, you're back a month later. If you're in, we own you in a very awesome way because you're not part of the Wheaton community. Your college process is done. Obviously, that's for a very small section of our applicant pool, the people who know 103% that they want Wheaton. The traditional regular decision, we have that. You apply January 15th, you hear back in mid to late March, and then you have until May 1st to let us know if you're going to be a Wheaton student or not. And now we have early action. Last year was our first year doing it. And this is, in my attempt to be funny, it's if you are ready to submit but can't quite commit on November 15th, do early action. If you are ready with all your application materials in mid-November to apply to Wheaton, but you don't want to commit to ED, don't blame me, I didn't apply ED, but if you are going to, awesome. Apply by early action. You hear back in January. You'll hear back around the same time that your regular decision peers are just applying. So you hear back 2.5 months sooner, but you have all the same time until May 1st to let us know. So it really just elongates the process in the decision phase and shortens it in the waiting phase for sending the submit button, basically. You could have always applied November 15th. Regular decision, you just wouldn't have read it until January, to be quite honest. So now it just moves the process up. We get no benefit. And from the ED, there's a binding nature, so we're able to tweak that a bit. EA, early action, had basically the same acceptance rate as regular this last year. We don't predict that changing, but last year was our first year, so we don't really think, we don't want it to be different. We don't want to force students to apply early, and our biggest application pool is still regular decision. With ED and regular decision, financial aid packages come with the decision. Early action, just because of when it falls and the volume of early action applicants we predict on getting, the financial aid package follows in early to mid-March. So we don't expect early action students to enroll the day after they hear. We don't expect to hear much from you, no offense, until, March or April or May. However, if you are early action, especially in my travel territories, you will be hearing from me. Occasionally, not that many times, like twice, 3 times. Just me saying hi, hello. But it's really, we don't flood you with emails or whatnot. Just the regular amount of emails is fine for that interim period. Questions about that stuff?
You're going to tell us what you're looking for in incoming freshmen?
I guess I could.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. We are looking for people who are, students who want to go to college for the academic experience, obviously. Our average GPA is about a 3.5 on a 4 scale, so A minus B plus average. We're also looking for students who are going to exist well beyond the classroom. If we were to have 1,600 students who just were students, that would be a really boring campus, straight up. So we want students, is the academic transcript the first thing we're going to look at? Sure, in a hierarchical sense. But what is the very close second? The extracurriculars. What do you do outside the classroom? This can be a million things. We have a lot of students who work basically 40-hour jobs because they need to support their family. So they don't have time for the clubs, for the sports, for the high school resume building things. I'm not going to treat that any differently than the student who does 3-season varsity athlete, captain, and organizes the blood drive every other day. We understand that students do different things because of their situations, their interests. If you are that 3-season varsity captain who does like a trillion things, cool. There aren't that many of those in the world, I've discovered, so I wasn't one. Find things that you're passionate in. At this point, you probably have them. Pursue those. If you do 5,000 things, great. If you do like 3 or 4 things and you really love them, great. We're not gonna say that, oh, that's not Wheaton material. Wheaton students are very busy. They are students. They wear multiple hats. They're an athlete. They have 2 campus jobs. They're in student government. They run this club. They run that club. But the students who try and do too much in high school and in college, how much are you actually going to do? So we like students who find things that they're good at, pursue them academically and outside the classroom. We do like the writing sample. I will be completely honest. It is the one thing that's you telling us about you. Not your grades, not your resume, not your teachers telling us about you, but you telling us about you. And in another sense, it's a writing sample. Writing's very important, probably at all colleges. And so, know that we look at it not just for content, but for, is this person expressing his or herself well, him or herself well? Are they able to communicate effectively with the written word? There's one lens we look at that. Also, oh my god, this person can juggle with their feet. Awesome! 2 lenses that we look at the writing sample in that sense. And of course, teacher recommendations. We look at those. Teachers always get angry that I say that for the last. They're very important. It's just they usually come at the end of the application physically. SATs, ACTs, completely optional. We have been test optional for whenever 1992 was. So like it's our 21st, 22nd year doing it. If you want to submit scores, go ahead, by all means. If you don't want to, for whatever reason, you'll be in the company of about 45 to 48% of your incoming class. So a very large minority do not send us test scores. For the SATs, anyone taking the ACTs? Cool. For the ACTs, 27 to 29 average, somewhere in there. For the SATs, we don't look at the writing sample, like a lot of small colleges. So out of 1,600, our average is at 1,250 to 1,300. If you have like a 1,240 and you submit them, it's not like we're going to deny your application. If you have a 1,000 and you submit them, if your application is strong, if you have good grades, if you are a good writer, if you have good extracurriculars, if your teachers love you, I can almost guarantee you that we're going to brush those SAT scores under the rug. We are much more prone to look at you over a 4-year, 3.5-year period from multiple perspectives that show depth and character and whatnot than a 3.5-hour period on some random Saturday taking a test I'm guessing you don't want to take. So SAT scores can help. I've never seen a situation where they've hurt a student. Because if you have a generally weak application and weak test scores, it's not test scores that are going to maybe sink the ship. Other questions?
Do you have any advice about the writing sample? Is it still like you concentrate on one page, and talk about, give a story of yourself, of your life, or, that kind of thing? Or is it?
I personally think, and I wouldn't know because I don't know their motivation.
Right.
I think some of the best samples of writing that I've seen are students who don't kill it, who don't overthink it, who don't parse every sentence, every word out. We can, and this isn't necessarily, it's not like we're going to deny you because of this. We can tell when a student has had 35 people look at an essay because it loses some character. And not that it's uncharactered, but you have a character. You're a person. You're USA Network. Characters welcome. You are someone that we want to get to know. So if you have 35 people look at your essay, I probably had 20, no big deal. Don't let them change who you are. If you're quirky, let us know some way. If you are truly driven by the English language and you love using verbose words and completely awesome diction, go for it. If you are someone who just had this awesome idea, and you think that idea encapsulates who you are, talk about that idea. Some of the best essays I've read were about feet. This girl was a ballerina and a field hockey player, so she wrote about how shoes defined who she was, because that's how she interacted with her two favorite things, and yet she loved running barefoot. Cool. It was a great essay because it hit on a lot. I don't think she really intended it to. She was just talking, she was probably just one day looking at her feet and thought, I do a lot with you guys, and she wrote an essay about it, and it was great. So, for Wheaton, don't stress too much. Stress about, like, don't stress, don't stress. You know, like, make sure we can read it, and that's not going to be an issue. Like, you know, every now and then we'll get an application that just wasn't proofread at all. It's one thing to not have 35 people read it, it's another thing not to read it. You know, have like your brother or sister. My sister read mine after any change I made just because she didn't care enough about my college application process to give me substantive feedback, but she was nice enough to let me know that this is not how you spell that word. Cool. Great. So, you know, that stuff pay attention to, but for the themes, really hold on to those. Let those be you. No offense, parents. Let those be you. That's what we like to read. But it's one part of the application. So if for some reason, you know, it's not the best written essay I've ever read, first off, only technically one person can ever hold that position, and I read 600 applications a year, so statistics. But it's just, that doesn't mean anything other than, oh, well, look at the grades. Look at how much time she spends outside the classroom. Look at all this other stuff. It's one part of the whole process. Of course, by all means, go hit that flag.
Bye.
Bye.
Other questions on your minds? Of course. I'll just wrap up on the merit scholarships, that little tasty morsel. You apply for the need-based aid, the FAFSA, CSS profile, blah, 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 acronyms. You don't apply for the merit scholarships at Wheaton. You're automatically reviewed for merit scholarships. So there are 3 levels of it, ranging from 12,500, 15,000 to 17,500. Those numbers repeat all 4 years. It's the top third of our entering class that fall under the merit scholarship domain. The largest amount are the intro level, then the medium level, and then the highest level. Regardless of the level, all merit scholars receive that stipend that I applied for career services. Merit scholars automatically receive one of those, $3,000, to be used during one of your summers as a student. So whatever number you get, add $3,000 to it technically, because you're getting a merit scholarship as well.
Is that GPA or SAT scores? What's it?
It's not at all objective. Some schools you put in GPA plus SAT equals alphabet soup of merit scholarship. We can't be that objective since we don't rely on SATs. And I think it's wholly to the student's benefit, the subjectivity we bring in. If we had a 3.70 cutoff for our merit scholarships, this is hypothetical, what if you had that 3.69 student, 3.68, who is just awesome? It would do us a disservice because we wouldn't be able to offer you this award. It also do you a disservice. You're 0.01% or 0.01 grade points off, and we're going to knock you out of contention for this. So academics are a big factor. But we also, when we look at transcripts, we look at specifically what school you go to. So a student from a school I visited in Ohio had he had a 3.35, which is well below what our normal merit scholarship range might be. But if you know that that school, in order to get a 3.35, roughly a B+, that is, you know, next to impossible, because that school really ardently, you could argue, deflates its grades just to smack their students around and say, don't expect A+ every time you do something in life. So, you know, that student's GPA on our system was a 3.35, but he was also a merit scholar, because we know that, you know, one student in his graduating class of 60 students had a 3.5 GPA, everyone else was below that. So that's another way that subjectivity comes in, that we are going to look at your transcript and your application as a whole, close enough that we can notice things that affect it. Anything else? Well, I know that sometimes things come up later, so they give me these official looking business cards, of which probably 15 reside in my mother's car. But if you have questions, be it next week, next month, or whatnot, I'm happy to address them however I can